Go time!
A video game adaptation of a 70s, 80s franchise in 2025? Sure, why not, right? Dating all the way back to 1978, Cobra started out as a Japanese manga series created by Boichi Terasawa before becoming its own animated film, Space Adventure Cobra. It was a massive success through the years in Japan, spawning merchandise such as action figures, stamps, an anime series, and even shirts. North American audiences wouldn't come to discover Space Cobra until the mid-90s thanks to a dubbed movie release. Streaming platforms such as Crunchyroll would eventually bring the anime series to a broader audience somewhere around 2014 in 2 different parts. Believe it or not, Space Adventure Cobra: The Awakening isn't the first time this franchise has attempted to become a video game. Back in 1982, a few electronic handheld games were created, Space Cobra Professional and Space Cobra The Psycho Gun. In 1989, a game was released for the PC Engine, which even spawned a sequel in 1990. This would come to be released in both Europe and North America as the Space Adventure Cobra: The Legendary Bandit. All of that history aside, some of you may be asking, why a video game based on this property some 15 years later? Well, for one, publisher Microids is no stranger when it comes to leaning into nostalgia, and also, with streaming, sometimes what's old becomes new again. But did Space Adventure Cobra: The Awakening serve as a wake-up call that it's time to put this franchise on ice? Or does our old friend Cobra still have some juice left in that Psycho Gun of his? Let's find out in our full review. But real quick, revitalize a fair gaming media by heading over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames. You'll gain Discord access to the greatest indie gaming community, enjoy early ad-free shows, receive a shout-out at the end of every video we produce, our podcast 3 days early, so much more. Your new indie gaming community is waiting for you. Space Adventure Cobra: The Awakening is a 2D action game that sometimes feels like a run-and-gun title, mixed with a healthy helping of platforming along with a few puzzles to crack. The game bases itself off of the first 12 episodes of the anime series, going as far as to include full-on anime cutscenes throughout its campaign that will sometimes mix beautifully with the gameplay. Unsurprisingly, you'll play as Cobra alongside his partner in crime, Lady Armoroid, on a quest to save the universe from various existential threats. Armed with your Psycho Gun and various other gadgets, you'll blast through a variety of episodes collecting power-ups and defeating bosses en route to saving the day. If you were already a fan of the various forms of media this franchise has taken on throughout its history, then you'll know what to expect out of the story. A bit of action, some spicy romance, and plenty of corny one-liners that will tickle your funny bone. The voice acting performances bring the cheese to a level of smelliness that makes the entire game reek, in the best possible way.
Great job of hiding you in this small village. If you're not ready to talk, the gas treatment will loosen your tongue.
Even as someone who didn't watch this anime religiously, I felt inspired to go back and check out a few episodes as I was drawn into the bravado of our lead character Cobra, and enjoyed his interactions with the few sexy cohorts he riffed with throughout. Even some of the villains, such as the hilariously named Crystal Bowie, were hard not to like. I guess what I mean to say is, I enjoyed the world of Space Cobra, and you may too, assuming 80s anime is your flavor. Those who find gratuitous butt shots and large-breasted vixens cringe may roll their eyes at it all, but I, for one, found the entire vibe, at the least, amusing. In truth though, having watched the movie and a few episodes of the show in preparation for this review, it is a relatively tame affair when compared to the likes of, say, Ninja Scroll. Plus, the game tends to shy away from the more risque moments of the show from what I've seen, so it's unlikely anyone will be too up in arms over anything presented here. As a gameplay experience, Space Adventure Cobra: The Awakening is surprisingly competent, assuming you can manage its somewhat awkward control scheme. Cobra has a decent assortment of tools at his disposal, and because of this, the developers have tried to cram a great deal onto a single controller and seemingly ran out of buttons. You'll awkwardly hold the bumper to aim, tap the trigger to shoot, or hold it down to charge up the Psycho Gun's burst shot. All the while, there are secondary cigar grenades, a grappling hook, and even another gun to account for. Throw in an air dash and melee attacks, and things can feel a wee bit sloppy. That said, I was eventually able to wrap my head around things, even if I never became fully comfortable with any of the available control layouts. At least the platforming feels quite lovely, as Cobra was able to easily cling to walls, leap between cliffs, and slide underneath crevices rather fluidly, helped by the game's smooth 60 FPS performance, which seemed to mostly carry over to the Steam Deck version as well. There's some decent level design here too, with plenty of collectibles to go back for that will make Cobra more powerful. Full of branching paths along with an assortment of enemies, traps, and obstacles, I credit the developers for crafting some decent, varied areas worth exploring, and even changing things up from time to time with a puzzle, like needing to carefully guide a homing missile to unlock a door. Combat is decent too, having players rely on specific abilities to disable enemy shields at times. There's even a few clever boss fights to partake in that didn't feel overly frustrating. Maybe it goes back to the well one too many times, and levels can feel long, sometimes stretching upwards to 20 minutes in length, but overall the experience was certainly more fun than frustration. While the surprisingly lengthy narrative will be the main draw of the game, a 2-player mode is also available, though unfortunately it wasn't all that functional at the time of this review. It's a separate mode from the campaign entirely, where you go through rather bland areas taking out enemies as a team. The problem is the teamwork aspect doesn't work well for this game, and even worse, when exiting a screen, every so often the game went dark, never to return. Hopefully this is a bug that has already been ironed out, but overall, I don't recommend the 2-player experience in its current form. Thankfully, the single-player campaign comes with some unlockable side missions where you get to play as a few of the other characters in the Cobra universe. Most of them control like Cobra Light, but it's a nice change of pace, even if the levels themselves are nothing to write home about. In between levels, players can even enter their ship and decorate it using items they've collected, or listen to songs from the game. When factoring everything, the game offers a decent amount of content and replayability, even if the 2-player mode never comes around. From a visual standpoint, I feel the developers have done a nice job capturing the spirit of the show. The 3D environments are nothing to write home about, however, I thought the character models were great. It's a shame then that the game is so often zoomed out, as players don't often get to enjoy the finer details of the models and animations. The moments where the game's camera cinematically zoomed in or switched to a fixed perspective were some of the best of the entire campaign. I just wish it happened more often. Scenes from the show are also featured throughout, and seem to be upscaled to surprising effect. It was fun to see these scenes play out and progress the story forward. One of my favorite touches was the shift from game to anime whenever you unleashed Cobra's super attack. Overall, the presentation is pretty good, with a fun soundtrack that's full of quirky jazz pieces and hilarious, though far too often repeated, quips from enemies such as "Bloody hell!" While Space Adventure Cobra: The Awakening is undoubtedly a niche product designed for fans of the show, it's welcoming enough to be enjoyable for newcomers too. Plus, it features 3 different difficulty options to help balance things out, though it was never all that taxing on the normal setting, with players respawning close to where they've died. Don't expect this on anyone's Game of the Year list, but its mix of humor, solid gameplay and level design, and impressive presentation make it worth a look. If you love the franchise, you'll be buying this without question regardless of what I say, but you can at least take comfort in knowing you aren't getting a complete turd, and the developers seem to actually give a shit about the property. For everyone else, you'll get a somewhat jank but fun action game with enough variety to keep you playing through until the end, warts and all. On our scale ranging from the dreaded Indie Krampus for the games that you should avoid, all the way up to the elusive Gold and Genie Lamp of Approval for the ones you just have to have in your indie gaming library, I'm going to award Space Adventure Cobra: The Awakening the Bronze Genie Lamp of Approval.
A camera? All right. You better explain quick why you were spying on me.
I had to obey, or else Zigova would kill my sister.
Zigova? The scum who makes his fortune selling women across the galaxy?